All right, well, it's the last Sunday of the month, and so we're going to be doing questions and answers. And I'm hoping that my slides look good because they look kind of funny on my end for some reason. But we're going to start off. I got a few questions here. I realized after last time that I had some questions sitting on my desk. I said I had like 2 left, and now I had more than that. And I had another question asked to me as well, and I went ahead and I put it in this one because I thought that everybody would find it a bit interesting. But anyway, let's go with the first question. Is listening to all secular music wrong according to the Bible? And the simple answer to this is no. We can enjoy life. I have met some people that have thought that everything in life had to be spiritual in nature. And so they would only listen to spiritual music, a cappella music and things like that, So they would only do that. But whenever you look at this, this is kind of one of those subjects where you don't see a whole lot in the Bible about every aspect of this. But if you just think logically, you don't have to read very long to realize that you do have aspects of life that you're not being spiritual. You're not that you're not spiritually minded, but you're not doing things spiritual. There's time of rest, which is not spiritual in nature. There's times when you are taking care of yourself that are not spiritual in nature. You can actually just kind of enjoy life in some degree. That concerning these things, when you're looking at this, you don't have to. I'm sorry, I'm trying to gather my thoughts here. There are things that are good, clean fun that we can enjoy that are not going to be spiritual. So, is it possible though that some secular music would be wrong? And I think we clearly know the answer to this. The answer to that is absolutely. There are some things that would be wrong. And let's name a couple of these. If it promotes religious error, it is wrong. That's got to be said first and foremost. You could look at this with, contemporary Christian music and apply it right here. But there are a number, even just in secular songs, that they make religious references, and it's blasphemous. One of the songs that I heard growing up, and it was by Joan Osborne. I don't even know the song name, but the lyrics were "What if God was one of us?" And it is just in blasphemous territory, speaking like that. So, in looking up songs that I might add here, my better judgment prevailed because all I did is I went to like a Christian website. I went to these various Christian so-called websites where I asked these questions and try to see if anybody had anything, and they had songs. And if you went and you looked at the lyrics, they were terrible. You couldn't even talk about them. So I'm not going to talk about a lot of these. But there are a lot of terrible songs out there, far more than I even understood. There are songs being made constantly. But many of the religious songs this was kind of an interesting thing. I didn't see this coming. But many of the religious songs that are put out, as far as like there's religious references in a secular song, they were highly sexualized. Sometimes sexualizing a term for something in the scriptures. So it's not good. We shouldn't be doing that. Now, of course, there's doctrinal error as well. You already mentioned some of that, but doctrinal error is wrong. And we mentioned one time a few months ago, I guess, Miranda Lambert, Heart Like Mine. She talks about drinking alcohol and that, and how Jesus turned water to wine. And so that's just doctrinal error. That's a song that you wouldn't be able to to participate in and listening to. But we don't support error, but we're supposed to call it out. Titus 1:11 says, whose mouths must be stopped, men who overthrow whole houses, teaching things which they ought not for filthy lucre's sake. All right, another thing, and we've already kind of hinted at this, if it is not pure, it is wrong. Again, sexualized themes are certainly wrong. Have a myriad of passages for this. In 1 Corinthians 6:18 through 20, flee fornication. Every sin that a man doeth is without the body, but he that committeth fornication sinneth against his own body. Or know ye not that your body is a temple of the Holy Spirit, which is in you, which ye have from God, and ye are not your own? For ye were bought with a price. Glorify God, therefore, in your body. So whenever someone commits sexual sin, this is done against your own body. All other sin is, hey, it's outside the body here, but this is a sin against your own body. 1 Thessalonians 4 and verse 3. For this is the will of God, even your sanctification, that ye abstain from fornication. So you got to keep away from all this stuff. And really the sad fact of the matter is that the more that we entrench ourselves in these things, the more we think about it, right? The more we think about it, the more we change our behavior on it. We may be desensitized to it. And so we got to be careful about those things as well. 1 Thessalonians 4 and verse 7, for God called us not for uncleanness, but in sanctification. This is the idea of sanctification, is being set apart. We got to be set apart. We got to be different. And being just like the world is not different, right? And so if we're over here and we're just enjoying things that are not pure, in and of itself, we are not pure. Ephesians 5 verse 3. But fornication, this is, I think, a good passage for this. But fornication and all uncleanness or covetousness, let it not even be named among you as becometh saints. There shouldn't be any of this amongst brethren. This should not be a thing. This is actually even one of those things that don't even let it be named among you. Nobody should be doing this. So you could spend a lot of time talking about this. I think we all know this is wrong. Whether or not someone actually follows through and goes, oh, I'm not going to listen to that kind of stuff. Well, listen, let's be consistent here. All right, another thing about this is cursing should be abhorred. And you want to stay away from that. Ephesians 4 verse 29. Let no corrupt speech proceed out of your mouth, but such as is good for edifying as need may be, that may give grace to them that hear. Now, a lot of people will go, oh, well, you know what? This is talking about saying it. I'm not saying it. I'm just listening to it. Isn't that different? I'm just listening to it. As long as I'm not doing it, I'm fine. I can listen to it. I've heard all kinds of things being said like that. But in Matthew 12, verses 34 and 35, it says, ye offspring of vipers, how can ye, being evil, speak good things? For out of the abundance of the heart the mouth speaketh. The good man out of his good treasure bringeth forth good things. The evil man out of his evil treasure bringeth forth evil things. And so, what you put in is going to come out. That is the whole thought process. So, if we are having all this bad stuff coming in, eventually that's going to come out, right? Another thing, sinful themes should be avoided. We've already mentioned sexual themes. There are other things that, that would go along with this. There are lots of country songs that talk about divorce and glorify it in some sort of way. Now, I know that country music is the most popular music out there, and probably most everybody listens to it to some degree. I don't. I'm not a part of that crew. But, I'm sorry, but that's the way it is. We need to be careful about those things as well. Another one, this is one. Now, this is the one that hits my type of music. That is hatred. You got to be careful about that too. Because there are lots of songs out there that promote anger and hatred. Now, maybe this is because I don't like country music. I've got 2 country music songs. But these were the first ones that came to mind. I've heard both of these songs, but one was I Hope She Cheats. And the whole thought process is, I hope she cheats on you like you cheated on me. That's the whole thought process of the song. And we're not supposed to want ill will for people. This is just wrong. That was a song by Gabby Barrett. And then another song like unto it is Before He Cheats by Carrie Underwood. There are a lot of songs that we could put in here. And especially when you're talking about, these inciting, hatred. I mean, there are bands that they actually, that is the premise of why they play music, is to incite violence and hatred. So that being the case, we got to be careful about all those things. Don't get caught up in that. Listen, I know I like music. I do. I love music. I like catchy tunes, those are great. I love them. But whenever that catchy tune is associated with sinful stuff, let's stay far from it. I think going into Philippians 4 and verse 8, finally, brethren, whatsoever things are true, whatsoever things are honorable, whatsoever things are just, whatsoever things are pure, whatsoever things are lovely, whatsoever things of good report, if there be any virtue, if there be any praise, think on these things. So we're supposed to be thinking about good stuff and not bad stuff. All right. Number 2. How does one put God first? Well, we talked about this quite a bit this morning in a lesson, Matthew 6 and verse 33. But seek ye first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you. So we're supposed to seek first the kingdom of God, but how exactly do we do that? How do we do that? Well, I think there's several ways, and I'm sure that this is not an exhaustive list. You might even be able to come up and tell me something to add to this list. But I think first and foremost, there are a few things here that we need to do in order to put God first. I think the very first thing is, we need to study, give diligence. 2 Timothy 2:15, give diligence, present thyself approved unto God, a workman that needeth not be ashamed, handling aright the word of truth. And so when we're looking at this, if we're going to, get better, if we're going to put God first, we're going to grow in the Lord, then we have to study. That's a part of putting God first. And that reason why that's a major thing of putting God first is that you're going to have to, while putting God first in practical matters, you're going to have to answer some questions. People are going to ask you why you're doing something, and so you're going to have an answer, so you better be studying these things. Another one is that we need to be praying. Be without ceasing. 1 Thessalonians 5:17. We need to pray be able to pray at any given moment. Have that attitude of prayer all the time. Another thing that we need to do, and we mentioned this morning, is that we need to faithfully attend worship. We need to be coming together. Hebrews 10, verse 25, not forsaking our own assembling together as the custom of some is, but exhorting one another, and so much the more as you see the day drawing nigh. Of course, then, we also need to think about this. So all these things kind of lead up to one thing that I think is kind of helps us in putting God first, and that is growing in our faith, growing in our maturity as a Christian. We all grow at different rates. Some people will read something or they'll hear something and they'll immediately just okay, yeah, that's right, I'm going to change. And some people, you just have to keep saying it and saying it and saying it and saying it and saying it, and one day it just kind of finally is just beat into their brain, and they go, okay, yeah, now I'm going to do it. And so I don't know why that is. I don't know if that's stubbornness. I don't know, but we all grow at different rates, okay? And some of this has to do with our own temperament, how well, we're going to respond to the Scriptures when we're studying it. Another aspect of this is just the time that we're going to put into it, how fast that we're going to grow, how serious we are about something. And so thinking about growing, in 2 Peter 1, 5 through 11, I don't know if you can read this, it says, "Yea, and for this very cause, adding on your part all diligence, in your faith supply virtue, and your virtue knowledge," as you realize this is all building on each other, "and in your knowledge self-control, and in your self-control patience, and your patience godliness, and your godliness brotherly kindness, and brotherly kindness love. For these things are, if these things are yours and abound, they make you to be not idle, nor unfruitful unto the knowledge of our Lord Jesus Christ. For he that lacketh these things is blind, seeing only what is near, having forgotten the cleansing from his old sins. Wherefore, brethren, give the more diligence to make your calling and election sure. For if you do these things, ye shall never stumble. For thus shall be richly supplied unto you the entrance into the eternal kingdom of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ." And then last in this list of things, I think that it's important to say, look, we've got to live for the Lord. Yeah, we're talking about living faithfully, but we got to live for the Lord. Philippians 1 and verse 21, "For me to live is Christ, and to die is gain." And so as I am living, what am I going to do? I'm going to be living for the Lord. I got a couple other passages here. Titus 2, 11 and 12, "For the grace of God hath appeared, bringing salvation to all men, instructing us to the intent that, denying ungodliness and worldly lust, we should live soberly and righteously and godly in this present world." And of course, Matthew 5 and verse 16, "Even so let your light so shine before men, that they may see your good works and glorify your Father who is in heaven." And so we need to live faithfully. Now, I got another question here, and this one is kind of in depth, and so this is going to be the last question, and I'll try to do it concisely, but there's a lot of working parts here, and I hope I'm not very confusing here. But the question is, why was Canaan punished and not Ham? And this is going back to Genesis chapter 9, and so we're gonna have to sit here in Genesis chapter 9 for a little bit and talk about some things. Now, this is having to deal with Noah and his intoxication after the flood. So Genesis 9, verses 22 and following, it says, "And Ham, the father of Canaan, saw the nakedness of his father, and told his two brethren without, and Shem and Japheth took a garment and laid it upon both their shoulders, and went backward and covered the nakedness of their father, and their faces were backward, and they saw not their father's nakedness. And Noah awoke from his wine, and knew what his youngest son had done unto him. And he said, Cursed be Canaan, a servant of servants shall he be unto his brethren. And he said, Blessed be Jehovah, the God of Shem, and let Canaan be his servant. God enlarge Japheth, and let him dwell in the tents of Shem, and let Canaan be his servant. And Noah lived after the flood 350 years. All right, so looking at this, the question really is, I'm going to have to explain some things that are going on here and kind of give some background to some stuff that's going on. But then the question is, Ham has done this thing. So why is Canaan then punished for what Ham has done? And I think that that's a pretty good question because of, I don't know how many times we've mentioned Ezekiel 18:20 from the pulpit since I've been here, but you remember what that passage says, the soul that sinneth, it shall die. And so you're thinking, what is going on here? We think about that a lot. And so, yeah, let's think about this for a few minutes. Now, so going back into this, I want to make some clarifications here. Maybe these are things that you've heard before, so bear with me. But this is after the flood. And then go back to Genesis 9, verses 20 through 24. It says, And Noah began to be a husbandman and planted a vineyard. And he drank of the wine, he was drunken, and he was uncovered within his tent. And Ham, the father of Canaan, saw the nakedness of his father, and told his two brethren without. And Shem and Japheth took a garment and laid upon both their shoulders, and went backward and covered the nakedness of their father. And their faces were backward, and they saw not their father's nakedness. All right, so first, the question I really want to answer, I've actually had to answer this one in the past, and I'm pretty solid on this point here. But people go, well, why is Noah getting drunk? Why is that? I think there's a good scientific explanation for this, and that is that before the flood, when you had the firmament, there's this high pressure system scientifically. Listen, if Jeff Miller were here, he could tell you all about this aspect of it. All I know is that it would have created a high pressure system. That's why people are living longer. They're protected from UV rays because this firmament is blocking direct sunlight, and so all this going on, and this is I think a pretty big deal here for Noah. This changes everything so much after the flood, because with that firmament gone, without it being there, you've got an oxygen-rich environment that you didn't actually have before. And so, just to illustrate this, if someone had been drinking anything that was alcoholic before the flood, in order to get intoxicated, they'd have to drink and drink and drink and drink and drink in order to get there. It'd have to be very potent. Now, going into this and illustrating this, I used to, I think I mentioned in a sermon recently, I used to go spelunking a lot and would go to caves. And so I went to this one cave over in Sweetwater, Tennessee, and it was near where I lived, and a pretty famous cave. It's called the Lost Sea. You might have heard of it, maybe not, but it's the largest underground body of water that we have found. And so you can actually go in there and have a boat ride in the cave. It's pretty cool. It's not a river. It's a lake. It's a lake under the ground. Why is this important? Why is this cave important? Well, during Prohibition, when you could not get alcohol, what they would do is they had a speakeasy in the bottom of the cave, and so you could go in there, and people would go, and they'd have their parties in there. They'd get lanterns, and they'd go in there and hang out, and they'd go and drink and do all this. But a interesting phenomenon happened, because it is a high-pressure system inside of a cave. And as they were walking up, they actually had carved in steps into this cave, so you actually can walk up steps. And so they walk up these steps to go out of the cave. And they would get, I think it was about 50 feet away from the opening of the cave, and all that oxygen would hit them, and they would just get completely inebriated all of a sudden, and they would pass out, and they would fall all the way back down into the cave. And this happened so much, and they thought, what is going on here? And it was because you could actually drink more while you were in the cave, but when you came out and you hit all that oxygen-rich air, all of a sudden, you just got really drunk. And so you were trying to get drunk in the cave. Well, now you're really drunk when you try to come out. And it caused a whole lot of problems, right? And so people started trying to learn their lesson at that point. So I would suggest that that's what's going on with Noah. He is experiencing the same thing. This is probably something he did beforehand. Well, now, he realizes I can't do the same thing that he used to do. And so I don't. A lot of people have criticized Noah. I would say, have an open mind that maybe Noah didn't know what he was doing, okay? I'm just saying that. Maybe Noah didn't realize what was going on. All right, another thing that we need to answer here is the question of what is nakedness? Now, I'm not going to spend a ton of time on this, but if you have some questions concerning this, I'll be glad to answer more about this. But the idea of nakedness varies as far as you're either naked or you're not, but I don't know, what is going on exactly here. And so let's look at this. In Exodus 28, verse 42, speaking of the priests, it says, "Thou shalt make them linen breeches to cover the flesh of their nakedness. From the loins even unto the thighs they shall reach." And so they are to wear a garment that covers their thigh. We're going to see another passage here in just a second, because according to the scriptures, the thigh is nakedness. Again, in Exodus 20, verse 26, it says, "Neither shalt thou go up by steps into mine altar, that thy nakedness be not uncovered thereon." Now, they're wearing these linen breeches, and they're wearing kind of like a skirt type of a thing. We don't wear that today. Men don't wear that today. But this is a tunic, basically. And so they, this is another thing that ladies, you're going to know this better than us men. But you got to watch yourself when you're going up steps, right? Because you might reveal too much of yourself if you're not careful, right? And so that's what it's saying here. Now, if you go up a ramp, there's a slight incline. You don't have to lift your knees up as high. And so the idea of exposing your thigh is not going to happen like it would on steps. And so again here, making sure that they're not uncovering their nakedness. Now, Isaiah 47, 2 and 3 says, "Take the millstones and grind the mill, remove the veil, strip off the train, uncover the leg." The King James has thigh here. It says, "Pass through the rivers, thy nakedness shall be uncovered, yea, thy shame shall be seen. I will take vengeance and spare no man." So, listen, this is people get so mad at me for this, but, women wearing short shorts, they're exposing their nakedness. God says don't do that. Now, here's a main one for the guys. Actually, I say that now. I'm seeing so many guys walking around with short shorts, and it's just crazy to me. It's like, I don't know if you guys have seen it. I guess I'm probably kind of traditional, and I'm thinking, go buy some pants, man. What in the world? You look goofy. But guys are wearing short shorts now, and it's ridiculous. But when you are uncovering the thigh, that is nakedness. Now, your thigh reaches all the way down to your knee. And so the tunics and everything, we could go in. This will be a lesson for another day where we cover this more in depth. But a tunic would have covered down past the knee, so that your thigh was always covered. All right. Another one here, though, concerning nakedness, John 21, verse 7. So we know that above the knee is going to be nakedness. But what about, this is the thing for guys. Guys like to walk around without their shirts on, but is that okay? Well, John 21, verse 7, "That disciple, therefore, whom Jesus loved, saith unto Peter, It is the Lord. So when Simon Peter heard that it was the Lord, he girt his coat about him, for he was naked, and cast himself into the sea." Now, I like this one for the arguments I get on this one. This is so funny what people will try to say on this one. But the idea is he's got his shirt off. And so what does he do? He puts his coat back on, and it says why? For he was naked. So, having your, anything below the neck here exposed is nakedness. Now, this is the argument I love, because whenever I bring this up, people start going, "Oh, well, we don't know, maybe he was just completely naked." I think, are you kidding me? Okay, I have gone fishing before, and if I had a fishing buddy that went out and he took off all of his clothes, guess what? We're not going fishing again, okay? That is the most ridiculous thing. I don't know a single guy who's like, "Hey, that's fine, buddy." Nobody wants that, okay? This is not happening. He's got his outer cloak, which would have revealed one of those linen breeches that would have covered his waist on down. And he has taken off his cloak. And so it says, he puts it back on, for he was naked. All right. So I wanted to make sure that we understand that. There is a you're either naked or you're not. And I don't know to what degree this is. I don't know what is going on here. I have a basic understanding that he probably is not wearing any clothes. But I think that there are some other concerns here. And there's been some supposition here as to maybe Ham removed the clothes. I don't think that. But let's just keep that in mind and look at a couple other passages. Leviticus 18 and verse 6, none of you shall approach to any that are near of kin to him to uncover their nakedness, for I am Jehovah. So this is clearly wrong. Don't do it. Habakkuk 2 and verse 15, woe unto him that giveth his neighbor drink to thee, that addest thy venom and makest him drunken also, that thou mayest look on their nakedness. So don't get someone drunk to look on their nakedness. This is all wrong. Okay, so I've studied this before, and when this question was brought to me, I was like, well, I've studied this before, so I have a general idea, but there's another aspect to this question we're gonna ask and kind of approach here. But I don't have a good answer to what is going on. But I'll tell you this, I believe that Ham has done something to Noah. I don't even want to know what that was. I think that this is just in the realm of perverseness, and so I don't know what that was. If you open up commentaries, do yourself a favor, don't open up commentaries on this passage, because they will tell you all kinds of crazy stuff that really isn't in the scripture. You can't really see it in here. They'll make arguments from language and things like that. They'll make incestuous references here, and they actually make a reference. One of them made a reference to saying that, this looking upon Noah's nakedness, referencing Noah's wife instead of Noah. I don't think that's the case here. This is Noah. It's the father's nakedness that's being described. But what is going on here is I really think that he has done something, maybe some kind of a practical joke, done something to his father. It's lewd. And then he comes out and he tells his brethren, he tells his brothers. And so, like I said, the reason I come to this thought is because of Genesis 9 and verse 24. It says, and Noah awoke from his wine and knew what his youngest son had done unto him. And so I think something's done here. As best I can tell, something is done, and he knows that it's him. I don't know, But getting away from the icky stuff here, now let's ask the question at hand, and that is, so why curse Canaan? Now, it actually kind of is interesting when you think about this. So Ham does whatever he does, and then seemingly we see that Canaan is cursed. And Canaan, when you look at the genealogy, is not even the oldest son. And so the oldest son of Ham. So this is kind of interesting what is going on here. But going back, let's look at is the end of chapter 9. So verse 25 says, and he said, cursed be Canaan, a servant of servants shall he be unto his brethren. He said, blessed be Jehovah, the God of Shem. Let Canaan be his servant. God enlarged Japheth. Let him dwell in the tents of Shem. And let Canaan be his servant. And so when you look at this, what is going to happen? What is going to happen? Again, I think that there's not like you might be a little dissatisfied with some of the comments on this. First of all, this is not God. This is not God speaking directly here. This is Noah. And so there is that aspect of it. Is Noah saying this and not God? I saw so many people saying that, but I think that this is Noah saying this divinely. And so many people would I think would agree with this. But I truly believe it is in conjunction with what seems to be a prophetic statement in the following passages. So he's saying, you're going to, curse this Canaan. Well, how do we know Canaan? We don't know Canaan for this right here. What do we know? When we say Canaan, we use it with other words. We say, well, it's the land of Canaan. This is where Canaan goes. And then later on, what's going to happen? Well, they're going to go into the land of Canaan and conquer it. Why? Well, because you've got the Amorites there, which are the descendants of Canaan, and they are terrible people. Now, it seems to me that prophetically it's saying, look, this is where it's going to go. Canaan is going to go, and his descendants are going to go way out there, and they're not going to follow God. Well, cursed be to Canaan. You got Shem and Japheth. They're going to be blessed. Ham is not mentioned here. It's just Shem and Japheth, and then Canaan. And so the Canaan's other siblings, they're not mentioned here. Nothing is mentioned about them. They are not cursed, neither are they blessed. That's, I think, an interesting concept. They're not cursed or blessed. Canaan is not that. A lot of times when you have the cursings on families, and you see that God judges and he punishes to the third and fourth generation, as we see in Exodus 20. He's punishing to the third and fourth generation. That's not even really considered here, because nothing is said right here about Ham specifically. Nothing is said about his other children. It's just Canaan. Now, I think that it very well could be, and again, we're kind of in this area where we're making some kind of supposition here, but I think it very well could be, clearly by his actions, Ham is not a mature guy. I'm going to guess, just because I know how this works, I'm guessing his children aren't very, very good either. If you have an irreverent father, you're going to have irreverent children, and that's all there is to it, But the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. That's primarily the case. That's the general rule there. So, all this being said, when they are later called the Amorites, they are the enemies of God's people, and they will be subservient to God's people. Namely, you've got Shem and Japheth, all their descendants. That's, I think, what's going on here. Matter of fact, I want to look some of this up. I wanted to bring in at least one other reference here. Bob Winton in his commentaries, but here's the thing. Bob Winton is a member of the church. He is up in years. I haven't seen him in a long time, so I don't know how well he's doing. But he has written lots of commentaries on various books of the Bible. If you go to gbntv.org, you can get all of those for free digitally, and you can print them off if you want. So I would do that if I were you. But Bob Winton said this: Noah pronounced a divine curse on Canaan and blessings on the other two. This is not angry railings against Canaan by Noah, for only God could cause these predictive elements to be revealed. So, what Bob Winton is saying, the same thing that I've been saying, is it looks just predictive here, because what happens to Canaan? Canaan goes off, has his own nation, basically, and then all of his descendants, follow after other gods. They don't stick to the Father. they go off and they do their own thing. Anyway, so that is the last question that we're going to discuss tonight. I hope that that's been helpful. I hope that those that have asked questions find this to be helpful. I've got some more questions, but if you do have questions, please give them to me. I'll try to mix them in and answer as I can. But what we need to do now is we need to think about ourselves. We've talked about the scriptures a lot, but here's the thing. If we just know the scriptures, it does us no good. We need to follow the scriptures. And so we need to be obedient to the plan of salvation, to hear, believe, repent, confess, and be baptized. But also we need to live faithfully. Revelation 2 and verse 10, be thou faithful unto death, and thou shalt receive a crown of life. If there's anybody here that needs to respond to the invitation, please come as we stand and as we sing.